All right, gather around, children. This video is going to be specifically made as a diss record to all of those people in my comments on TikTok. So about a year ago, I made a video where I talked about how the new X-Men 97 show that's supposed to be coming out, a continuation of the popular 90s cartoon that we all watched as children, is going to be woke. There's recently been a trailer for it and everything. We take a look at it right here.
To me, my X-Men.
Now, of course, as so predictable, many in the comments came to talk about how, oh, you've clearly never read the comics. It was always about social justice issues and all of that bullshit. And I kind of just let it go on. One, because I don't be on TikTok like that. And two, I mean, you can't argue with these people. You know what I'm saying? You can't convince everybody. But it's been a year later, and I noticed you fuckers are still going in on my comments. Like, I just happen to check in whenever I'm going to upload a video. And I'm like, damn, y'all still mad about this? So I'm making this video specifically for you. With the help of my man, Eric July, we're going to show you that the X-Men were never created to be woke.
What makes you think that I'm an answer if you ain't mine? Even if
so we're going to start this off with a little clip from Eric July right here that tells you that Professor X and Magneto were not created to be MLK and Malcolm X.
First and foremost, no, Stan Lee did not create Magneto and Professor X with the sole intent of having them be analogies for MLK and Malcolm X. They weren't even specifically created to represent the civil rights era. If you read the X-Men when it first came out, it's not even remotely analogous to the civil rights era. So it makes sense as to why Stan Lee said in an interview that the metaphor was given to him more so as a gift. It like fell in his lap. He didn't specifically create it, and he didn't create the comic to represent the civil rights era. It was more of a case that there happened to be a metaphor at the time that could really make the narrative more relatable.
So as you can see right there, Stan Lee literally says it was given to me as a gift. Now, what Eric July would go on to say was that this makes sense because Magneto was actually just a cutthroat villain when he was first introduced in 1963. As a matter of fact, Eric July went on to say that it wasn't until the 80s that Magneto became sort of a a sympathetic villain, okay? That's what he was. So if you're saying that Magneto was created in the image of Malcolm X, you're kind of calling Malcolm X, in the originality of it, an evil person, because that's what Magneto was. There was no sympathy. He was really what Eric July described him to be, as a supremacist, a mutant who only just wanted to rule the world because he thought mutants were the better race. That's it. Let's go on to the next part.
And Professor X being like MLK was something that was done unconsciously. He literally says that himself. He didn't try to do it. This makes sense, again, because Magneto in his first appearances was just a regular cutthroat sort of villain. Professor X and the X-Men sort of stood in his way. He was a supremacist in a sense. He had intentions on ruling the world and the lesser humans, not any sort of common goal with Professor X. Don't take my word for anything. Just go read the comics starting in 1963 up until really the damn 80s.
And here you have it right here. He says, I think it was certainly an unconscious feeling. I never felt Magneto was 100% bad. I mean, there were reasons why he felt that way, but it was just up to Professor X to find some way to make him understand that he was on the wrong track. I mean, that you can't say any better than that. But we also got more. You know, here's a clip of Stan Lee on a radio show, and Eric July will give more context to it. What he said about the X-Men.
These folks going around perpetuating the myth again that is a complete lie, that the X-Men were created to be similar to the civil rights era or black injustice, gay injustice, or something of that nature, or of course that long-standing lie. So let's just listen in. We're going to listen in directly to Stan Lee's words here. Check this out right here. Let's listen in.
I mean, there are things like that people catch that you may not have even known that you were putting in there. But
you
obviously
are so right. Now take the X-Men. I was just originally trying to get an interesting group of characters with interesting powers, and I thought it would make it twice as interesting if the public really didn't like them that much. And if they had to worry about their reception by the outside world, little by little, I began getting mail saying how great it is that I'm doing these stories about bigotry and the evils of bigotry and so forth, and race hatred. And I guess I was doing that, but I was doing it subconsciously. That wasn't the main purpose.
And so what they would go on to describe is that Stan Lee actually created the mutants because he wanted to create characters with powers and didn't want to have to continuously over and over and over again explain their origins. He was being lazy, and it turned out to be a hit. Congratulations to him. Here's another clip.
Go. Now listen in on this as well.
And when the X-Men enjoyed its reincarnation on film, there was a lot of talk about how this was really the story of homophobia.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And that was not what wasn't part of the original blueprint.
No, it was the furthest thing from my mind.
Right.
So there you have it right there. He quite literally says that was the furthest thing from his mind. He wasn't thinking about that.
It was the furthest thing from his mind. The furthest. Okay? So what have we established here based on the words that Stan Lee, the words that came out of Stan Lee's mouth? Professor X and Malcolm X. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. Professor X and MLK is not the same person. Magneto and Malcolm X is not the same person. Stop it. It was more of a situation where he created some characters subconsciously that just so happened to be able to draw parallels to some of the things that was going on in society that day. It fell into his lap. So basically he created it, and people were walking up to him and sending him letters saying, oh my God, I relate so much to the X-Men because it draws parallels to the civil rights movement or the women's rights movement or, you know, gay rights and all of that. And then Stan Lee was like, oh shit, you're right. It fell in his lap. And that's what good art does, which we'll get to in a second. And so that's just what it is. Now, here's the thing. Good art allows you to interpret it in different ways. I have no problem with you or anyone else watching the X-Men, reading the X-Men, and drawing your own social injustice parallels to it, because that's what good art does. Nobody's taking that away from you. But what y'all are trying to do is hijack what the hell the X-Men was or is, because it was never that. Okay, the world doesn't revolve around you. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. And as a matter of fact, I would even argue with you that there's nothing wrong with mutants being gay or trans or non-binary or any of that stuff. There's no problem. As a matter of fact, it's more likely that if mutants were something real, there would be a lot of LGBTQ members in the mutant community. That's not the problem. The problem is the pushing of the agenda. Now you'll say, oh, there's no agenda. You're not going to tell me there's no agenda. Okay. They said this was a continuation of the 90s TV show. So if it's a continuation, it's still set in the 90s, but yet you just took a character called Morph, who was clearly referred to as a he, and now all of a sudden he's non-binary? But there's no agenda. Man, stop it. Listen, you're welcome to interpret it the way that you want, but you're not going to incorrectly portray the X-Men as if they were some type of social justice narrative driven comic or characters or whatever the case for all of these years, when it clearly wasn't. The owner told you that it wasn't. He went along with it because obviously it was driving sales, and that's okay. You're welcome to interpret it the way that you want. I'm welcome to interpret it the way that I want. All right? Y'all gotta stop hijacking shit. We went through this, we had this same conversation with Zelda. Remember that bullshit? Yeah, they tried to claim that Link from Zelda was trans. You really think that what? Zelda was created in the 80s, 90s? I don't know. You really think that 80s and 90s Asians at Nintendo was creating Link to be trans? Right. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. I'll talk to y'all later.
Magic. Beat that thing down like you started attention, my baby. You had some plans with your man, just tell him to cancel, my baby. Slide to the crib like Dracula's mansion, my baby.